Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Never Eat Pears podcast, where today we are joined by the wonderful YouTuber, massive Doctor Who podcast host. We're joined with Troy. Hello, mate. How are we?
That's quite the introduction. I'm good. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too shabby, not too shabby. Today, because I know we had a debate over which series you fancied, but you landed on series 4. Because I mean, people might know if they're familiar. This series is going to be a lot of me gushing because my god, I love series 4.
I'll join you.
I think I have personally described it as probably a lot for nostalgia, but I think I've described it as my favourite single series of TV of all time.
And you'd be perfectly valid for thinking so, yeah.
But first of all, as we've done with our other guests, we've had some lovely creative answers, so the pressure is on. It really isn't. We are going to do a couple of Doctor Who quickfire questions. They don't have to be quickfire, so don't stress. But, first of all, we'll start with which Doctor actor, so an actor who's played a Doctor, would you be interested in seeing play another incarnation?
I really want to just say David Tennant for the fun of it, but it's a good question. Ooh, I think maybe Colin Baker, purely because, you know, he kind of got the wrong end of the stick. Well, not the wrong end of the stick. He got shafted, to put it bluntly, by the BBC, and he wanted to do much more, and he wasn't given the opportunity to do so. And I've not seen tons of Classic Who. I've only seen bits of Doctors, but what I've seen of Colin, I think he's really good, and I think it'd be nice to see him kind of get the chance to take the reins again, because he's certainly coming to his own more with Big Finish, from what I've been told. So that could be a cool thing to say. But aside from that, David Tennant.
So if you could choose an incarnation that isn't the Sixth Doctor for Colin Baker to give a go at, which style would you like to see him do?
Oh, well, he kind of had that kind of abrasive, kind of more stern personality, so maybe something more like Capaldi's, I reckon. More like
that could be cool. Yeah. It would be one of those where you wouldn't want to replace Capaldi, but that'd be very interesting.
Absolutely
to see.
not. Yeah, no, 100%.
So what is your favourite series arc? So not series, but what is your favourite thing that ties a series together?
Ooh, I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. That's actually quite tough.
So you get the hard-hitting questions over here.
Yeah, you do. Wow. We have Vote Saxon, the planets. The Cracks was quite a good one. That was like the first Moffat in your face thing, and it did tie together really well. The Doctor dying was a little bit excessive, but it worked, I think. And then Clara, I liked the Clara thing. You know, a lot of people didn't, but it wasn't my fave.
Yeah, it probably wasn't for me, but you know.
Probably, I think either the Cracks or Missy, because both of them were really interesting and kept you going. What's going on here? Where's this leading to? I think both had really good payoffs. I think you could argue Missy's was better because it didn't answer in series 5. It pretty much covered it all, but we didn't tell us why the TARDIS exploded, so it wasn't just one big fully concluded thing, because obviously that all got wrapped up at the end of Matt Smith's run. But So if we're going off that, something that was very well sealed off as well, I would say Missy over the Cracks. But for suspense and just like really good payoff, I would say the Cracks. So one of the two.
See, my answer has always been, because you mentioned it, but Series 6, because for me, Series 6 is one of those, I think it can be a little bit overhated at times, but the elements that work about Series 6 for me are the arc elements, so like the River Song elements and the Doctor dying elements. If those are the elements that are carrying a series, that gives it a special place for me.
No, that's valid. Series 6 as well has got some just cracking single episodes. A lot of people that hate Let's Kill Hitler, but I think that's one of Matt Smith's best ones.
I enjoy that one.
Yeah.
So what episode, this is probably more generic, you'll have probably had this one before, but what episode would you give to a non-Doctor Who fan as their first episode? Try not to say Rose. I know it's a classic answer, but
I wouldn't say Rose, to be honest. I would. I think there's a couple of answers you could give, and it's going to be stupid ones that would be, well, not to say stupid, obvious ones of starting at the beginning of series. But the two, if I was to pick 3 defining points for people to jump on, I would say Smith and Jones, purely for my own nostalgia sake, because that was where I jumped on. I think the Pilot is an underrated one to jump on. I think that is also a really good one, even though it's tail end of a Doctor, so it's less so. But because of it felt like almost like a bit of a reset, it was really good. But in particular, I think Jodie's opener, The Woman Who Fell to Earth. If you're a fan of that run, which the best people are, obviously, then I think in terms of a Doctor opening episode, I stand by it that's the best Doctor Who opener episode for any Doctor. I think it's a really, really good story that gives you all the stuff you need to know, leads you into a new Doctor quite well, and sets up a really interesting villain, and it all works. But if I was to choose my own out of them all, I'd say Smith and Jones, purely because I relate to that one so much, because that was where I jumped on, and I was hooked from the get-go. Thought it was brilliant.
See, one I had suggested to me recently that I actually think is such a shout, as more of like a single episode to see if people enjoy the vibe, is Girl in the Fireplace. In terms of genuine quality of a story, in terms of having a Doctor being incredibly that's a very great Doctor performance. It has your more science fiction-y elements. It has a lot of heart in it. It has some bits of comedy. I think in terms of a lot of what Doctor Who is and can be, I don't think that's a bad shout at all.
No, that is quite a strong episode. I hadn't thought of that one before. I remember Full Fat Videos, I think, did a video at one point saying that Mummy on the Orient Express was a really good jumping on point, which is a good. It was an interesting, because I wouldn't have agreed with them at first, but as a solid episode of Doctor Who, it's fantastic. But it was is that a good jumping on point? But hearing the arguments, it was quite interesting, and he made some really fair points on that one. So I suppose you could make arguments for a lot of really strong episodes as good jumping on points. It depends what people are into, I guess, and what would hook them in.
I think that's the thing, is I'd probably say Mummy wouldn't be my choice, but if, for example, you were going, I'll show you a Chris episode, a David episode, a Matt, a Peter, and a Jodie, just to see, because obviously all of them, to lesser and greater extents, feel very different Who. I think that would be a great Peter episode to show as your first one, that's for sure, because that's very, very indicative of the style that Moffat was into in his later run in the show.
Yeah, 100%.
Next up, which Doctor, so incarnation, and then which actor from Doctor Who would you like to have a drink with? It can be a coffee, it can be a pint, we don't judge.
So which Doctor and which actor?
It doesn't have to be an actor who played a Doctor for the actor one. It can be any actor in the show, dead or alive, because that's also fun.
Actor, I have to say David Tennant, purely because I'd have to ask about the cake thing. I'd have to.
Of course.
I'm never going to get over seeing a Doctor eat my face on national TV. So that
I don't think I'm never going to get over it.
Yeah, I had to keep that secret for 4 months. That was what was so mad about it. I couldn't tell anyone, especially doing a weekly Doctor Who podcast and not telling Crispy. It was so they're like, a great story for you, but I literally cannot say a word. But so it would definitely be David Tennant. But Doctor, who would be good for a drink? I feel the thing is, I'm not a big binge drinker, so I'm thinking he would be more of a teetotaler. I reckon you probably have a good time with 13, because she wouldn't probably be one to get leathered, so she'd probably just kind of have a nice orange juice or something and just have a bit of a chill. I feel that'd be good vibes.
That'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun. That would be. And finally, which character do you think deserves an RTD2 spin-off?
Paul McGann, 8th Doctor.
He's a man
never going to say anything else. Yeah, he's
my favourite guest all time. Yep. We love him. We love him. Woo!
Oh, it's the only obvious choice for me. There's other ones that deserve it. I do want to see more of the Fugitive Doctor and stuff like that. But Paul McGann, top priority, easy.
Yeah, it needs to happen, especially because let's face it, 20 years down the line, it can't. It can still happen now, therefore we need it to happen. So
he's of that age where you could do like a Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, make it a limited series and do some really good stuff with it. Because for whatever people think of Obi-Wan Kenobi, I love the last episode. There was some some of the best Star Wars in that episode. But do something like that for Paul, link it back to the TV, maybe give us an interesting piece of the Doctor Who canon we haven't seen before, and it ties in well to the story. It could be beautiful.
I think it's such a clever one because, again, you can do it as a limited series. You don't have to go quite big a budget. And when spin-offs work is when they're similar yet different enough from Doctor Who. And if you can have, obviously this would probably only be a one-time thing, but if you could have 2 series of Doctor Who running at the same time but doing slightly different things, catering to different needs, it seems like you know, you could have someone different other than RTD writing it. It would cater to so many things that would it would be so good.
Yeah, 100%. It'd just be it's just an easy call, I feel like.
So now we get to move on to the lovely series that is Series 4. I'm just going to hit you with an opening question. What are your thoughts?
It's fantastic. It's my personal, probably favorite series of the show. Like my top 3, I love Series 4, Series 10, and Flux. Bit controversial, the last one, I feel like, but regardless, like they all just kind of capture different vibes of Doctor Who for me. And I feel like they all capture them really well. And the last one has John Bishop, so that was an easy win for that one. But no, Series 4, it's special to me purely because it was the first series of Doctor Who that I watched as a fan. Because obviously I jumped on with Smith and Jones, so I wasn't a fan of Doctor Who when I started with that, and I kind of leaned into it. So I was then into the show, excited to see more when like the hype train began for Series 4 and seeing that infamous TV advert of them like around like a campfire style thing, which is like, you know, this time I'm going to be ready. I remember that trailer vividly and being so excited because I watched Series 3 and I'm fairly confident I watched through all of Series 1 and 2 before we got to the 4, like we kind of played catch up. But it was just like it's an episode with no misses. There are weaker episodes or a weaker episode, like The Doctor's Daughter is the one that I always pick and go. That one's like probably my least favorite, but every time I watch it, I'm still like, this is a really good episode. Like it is still really strong. I don't like, you can't pick an episode and say it's bad. I don't personally feel.
I mean, I would go further and say all episodes are 8 out of 10 or above. Like I genuinely think pretty much all episodes I would go, actually, because you've hit on your weaker one, because I honestly think there's so little like weak episodes in this series. We could probably tick off our least favorites pretty quickly. This is probably quite controversial for me. I think Unicorn and the Wasp is my least favorite.
I was gonna say this. I've seen more and more of it online. People saying they don't like Unicorn and the Wasp, and I'm like, are we like, what? Why? Why not? Is your chance to speak for everyone who complains about it. Come on.
Right. I represent them all, and as I've said, I think all episodes in Series 4 are like an 8 out of 10 or above. I would still give this a very good review. I think stylistically, murder mysteries aren't always my thing. You've got some more cartoonish performances that didn't quite work as well for me. I actually think this episode, I'm not sure how much you've seen, but like the deleted scenes that kind of like frame this episode initially better with like old Agatha Christie, I actually think make the episode work better. I think
I haven't seen all them. I've seen little bits of it and they did seem interesting. So I'll give you that. Yeah, that's fair. And I do also think that the buzzing from the vicar towards the end, like that's a very Marmite thing. You're either going to find it goofy and laugh at it like I did, or you're going to go, what is happening? Because it is like a 40-year-old man going, put those like it's just, I can imagine the goofiness of filming that.
Yeah. I also think because obviously you've got the scene in the middle where like, oh, this is fun, isn't it? Quick side note. Remember they were talking about this thing at 3:00, this whole buzzing on your phone, the alert thing. I've just had mine on my phone.
It's not 3:00 for me.
Yeah, mine's on 2:59, and I've had the little emergency thing. That's a nice little fun thing to happen.
Let's have a look.
Yeah, my phone just suddenly decided to have an aneurysm.
I've just texted my mum as well and just said, be ready, the warning's about to come through in case it scares the life out of her. Hasn't come through on mine yet.
I completely forgot, and then all of a sudden my phone's gone, hello, this is a test.
Right, it's now 3:00. Is it coming through? I don't see anything yet. I just see Pedro and Bella. I don't see anything.
Great lock screen. I think you would be missing out if you didn't have one. I'd feel like I've had an experience, immediately flexed it in front of you, and then you just haven't had it.
It's not come through. I've not had it. It's not here.
No.
Oh, that's quite cool. So you were just speaking about Paul McGann, and Doctor have just tweeted out some green screen pictures of them filming the Guardians of the Edge scene. That's cool.
Very nice. I'll have to have a look at that.
On a scene of Sylvester with Sophie as well. I didn't realize that was all green screen. What?
Oh,
Blimey. That's crazy. Huh.
no, those look class.
Turning into my podcast very quickly, going off topic.
Yeah, sorry. I'd be a great substitute for Crispy, wouldn't I? Yeah,
you would, yeah.
I've got that Aussie accent down. I could be great.
Everyone's tweeting about it.
Oh no!
I'm just gonna tweet. I didn't get the emergency alert.
No, to be fair, it was. I've seen Dom tweet there was an uncomfortable noise. It very much was. That was.
Yeah, I heard it. Just sounded like you had like a fire alarm going off or something. I was like, what is that?
That's what I was saying. My phone was definitely having an aneurysm of some sort. I was worried for its life.
Yeah, that's odd. Yeah, a few people saying theirs went off early, but I've not had it.
No,
I've not had it.
They just clearly, if there's something happening, they're just not willing to warn you. They just don't care.
Yeah, blimey.
That's really rude.
I guess I'm in trouble then if we ever have a problem. God forbid we have one, I guess.
It's all right.
If it goes off in a minute, I'll say something, but...
Now I know if you don't have it, I'll quickly pop you a DM going, run. There's something bad's happening.
Run. Just run. That would terrify me if I just randomly get a message from someone just saying, run. Oh God! All right, Eccleston. Okay, well, yeah, it's not happened. If it pops up, then I'll suddenly tell you. But so where were we?
Unicorn and the Wasp. The other scene that I have to kind of like hold my hands over my eyes, but not in a scary way, is the scene with like David in the kitchen where he's been poisoned. That's all of it slapsticky and grim, and not for me, not my style.
That was like, oh, that's too salty. That's like Catherine and David just flexing their comedic chops in like the best way. I think that was brilliant.
So you said there that your least favourite is probably the Doctor's daughter.
In the sense that I like someone's put a gun to my head and made me choose, because I don't pick out the Doctor's daughter as a bad episode. It's nowhere near that. Every time I've seen it, I've gone, this is a good episode. But it's just like, if you had to pick one out amongst them all, I would pick that one out. But it still feels unfair to do so.
That's the thing. If I was, for example, ranking this series, I mean, Doctor's Daughter probably wouldn't even make my top 10 in a 13-episode series. But I mean, I think, especially because you can watch it nowadays with the context that Georgia and David are now married, that adds a little bit more.
Yeah, it's so sweet.
Fun. I think what makes that episode work for me is the mini arc within the episode that David gets to go on with the whole, relationship, that all of the actual David and Jenny. I'm mixing names there, but like work it like all that. I
do that all the time. Don't worry.
It's like when you use an actor's name and then a character's name. It always.
Yep. I love when 13 and Mandip.
Yeah. But no, I really rate Doctor's Daughter. But again, I see what you mean. The other one that's slightly controversial. I'm not as big as a fan of Pies of Pompeii. Fucking hell. Fires of Pompeii as other people.
I love the Pies of Pompeii. I think that's a great episode.
Great. It's good, but I think a lot of the Capaldi stuff and like the ending people seem to like really enjoy. For me, what doesn't work is like the bulk of the actual story. Like there are interesting ideas, the Doctor caused the earthquake, the volcano erupting. I'm smashing this, but the actual story elements with the pyrovials and all the like Karen Gillan popping up. It's that those elements have never quite worked for me.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know. I think the story's perfectly fine. I don't think it's like the best episode in the series, but I think there's some good character beats in there. I love all the stuff with Capaldi, and I do love the idea that the Doctor is the one who causes Pompeii's eruption. But also, like, I love the idea that it kind of gives us a bit more of an insight into like fixed points in time and how there are some things you just can't change and that kind of thing. And also, I love the parallels to Gallifrey, to him killing all the Time Lords, because it's not the thing with the show, and at least it was in my experience, was that I never really saw outright. I know they mention it in tiny bits Dalek in there that the Doctor actually outright killed every single person on Gallifrey, More that, like, you know, they had to make a sacrifice or they did something. But as a kid, it didn't really register. Looking back now, this is like one of the first big points where it's like, yeah, you killed everybody and you just had to do it again on a smaller scale. Because like it was only when it got to the 50th when I was like, what, 13, and they were like, oh, you killed everyone. And I was like, oh, he killed everyone. Oh, so maybe I was just slow to the mark or something. But like there were a few moments where it kind of hints at it. But looking back on it retrospectively, this is one of the big bits where it's like, wow, yeah, he like it's a really good mirror to that whole thing because it's still weighing on his mind. The one who regrets and the one who forgets kind of thing.
Yeah, I do love that bit of the 50th. That's very it's very clever. What we'll do, so let's talk more generally, and then we can go into some specific episodes a bit more in detail. I want to know your opinion on this. Not only for me is David and Donna just perfect, but the way I see Series 4, unlike, for example, I've always thought Matt Smith was actually better in Series 5, and then it never goes bad, but slowly regresses into a bit too silly for me. I think David gets better and better during his run, and Series 4 and the specials, without those, I think people would maybe be more justified in not liking Tennant as much. Series 4 is fantastic for David's performance. What would you say to that?
I think for every Doctor bar Matt Smith, I agree. Their performance gets better as they go on, or their Doctor gets better as they go on. I think Matt Smith is just consistent throughout. I do think he does change a bit, but I consistently like everything his character does right the way through. I just really like the whole 11th Doctor vibe and the way he kind of matures and does, like, as he gets older, he gets a bit more daft to kind of like that. But I don't think as a Doctor he gets better or worse over that time. But there is a definite trend that, you know, I prefer like Tennant in Series 4 compared to Series 2 and Capaldi in Series 10 compared to Series 8. And certainly like Jodie, I liked her more and more going through. And also just their series, I think, gets stronger as a bit of a trend, just my opinion. So yeah, definitely I think Series 4 kind of was what cemented David Tennant as like possibly the best incarnations of Doctor ever. Not to say 2 and 3 weren't great, because both of those series are brilliant. But 4 was like, it was him at his peak, his absolute peak.
And because obviously some people aren't fans of Rose and therefore love Donna. Some people love Donna, hate Rose. Some people are just big fans of both of them. I mean, I've always been in the camp of, I think just from nostalgia alone, no one will ever beat Donna as a companion for me. How do you sit on that?
Ooh, I don't know, actually. That's tough in terms of best companion, because that's the thing, because I got into Rose retroactively, having gone back to watch 1 and 2, so I still have like kind of like nostalgia where, you know, you hear the Doomsday theme, it's like, you know, if you're of a certain age in the UK, you were traumatized by this kind of thing. So there's that. But I don't know in terms of companions. I love Martha. I think she doesn't get as much love as she deserves. But I think it was quite cool that there was the idea, you know, when Catherine Tate was announced, everyone was like, oh God, she's going to be a companion. She won't be that good. Donna wasn't that good in Runaway Bride, blah, blah, blah. Which, by the way, I thought she was brilliant in The Runaway Bride. She's a bit more screamy, yeah.
She's better in Series 4, but she's absolutely fine in Runaway Bride, and that's invalid.
Yeah, I think she's really good. I mean, the pocket strokes my mum and I have literally referenced for the last 15 years. Whenever we mention pockets, we just always think of that scene. Like, that's just ingrained in our brains. So she's definitely up there with the best companions. I'm not sure, honestly, who I'd pick as my favorite companion. I've got to be honest with you. I think a while ago hers was Clara,
now you've said that, I've got to press you for an answer now.
I don't know. Because that's what I was saying. Like, I think my mum's fave might be Clara. I don't think it was retroactively, because when we rewatched all of it a couple of years ago, she was really, really like attracted to Clara as a companion. So I'm not sure if she still believes that. But for me, I just don't know. Because I like Donna and Bill are definitely up there, and I love Dan as well, just because John Bishop and just the comedic energy of him. As a companion, he didn't have as much to do, I know that, but like I still really loved him. So I don't know. Don't make me choose. Maybe Donna. Probably Donna.
So I needed an answer. I needed to push you for that one.
Yeah, I'm going to hesitatingly agree with Donna, yeah.
I think, you know, because there are arguments about who your favorite companion is. The thing that seals it for me is you can argue other companions. You definitely can. My thing has always been the best duo is Tennant Donna. Because I think even, for example, people who love Clara, the argument is probably 12 and Bill are probably better than 12 and Clara. You've got, I think people would have shouts for like 11, Amy and Rory, but I think not only are Ten and Donna so good together, but the way they're just used and how a lot of the stories are centered around their dynamic and the way it grows and changes and just is so enjoyable. Those two together for me can't be beaten.
Yeah, no, it's well argued. I'll just let you have that. Yeah, fair enough.
Yes, we're convincing people one at a time.
Success.
So obviously we in our quickfire questions we talked about series arcs. Here you've got a couple of, it's a less obvious series arc, but you've got things like the planets and you've got Rose's appearances.
Yeah.
Thoughts on the series arc here?
It's not one of the strongest. Like, I think it doesn't matter purely because the episodes individually shine to the point where you don't even really need that, because every week you've got a really good. I mean, people like us, we're going to watch Doctor Who regardless anyway. Like, it's not going to be like, this episode was bad, I give up. We're going to watch it every week anyway, but I feel like if you look at series 4, every single episode is just like, yeah, we're going from banger to banger to banger. You don't even really care about what's tying it all together because you don't even notice it because you're so busy just enjoying what's there every week. So, you know, like if in series 5, which I don't think there is an episode like this, but if in series 5 you were like, this episode's not so good, you're still like, what's going on with the cracks? Where are the cracks going? Blah, blah, blah. In this, like you said, it's just either the planets are mentioned every now and again. You do kind of go, oh, planets. And then you've also got the Rose thing. They're there in the background, but I don't feel like I was thinking about them as much as the cracks once they've been said and done. You know, Rose was there. She's gone. I've forgotten about it. I've moved on. You know, I knew it was there, but I'm too busy focused on the episode. So definitely one of the weaker, sounds harsh, but I will say one of the weaker story arcs, but I wouldn't want it to change because I think it works for what it does.
So I actually think, so for a little bit of context, Series 4 was the first series of the show that I watched live as a 6-year-old. So you can argue whether my parents were safe or not showing me that as a 6-year-old. But I'd watched all the other series up to then retroactively. So as a kid, I was like, Rose Tyler shows up every once in a while. That's mad. And obviously as a 6-year-old, I didn't pick up on the planets being mentioned because I was 6. Nowadays, I look back on it and go, Rose Tyler shows up every once in a while. Yeah, Rose is cool, but it's not necessarily that clever in terms of it's just Rose shows up. And it doesn't go anywhere other than Rose is on a TV screen in the background and Rose is there to tell Jackie about the bin and little things like that. It doesn't really, whereas the planets, I think, it works as a lesser arc. It's, you know, not the most detailed, but it works and is quite clever when you realise it in episode 12. So, I mean, there's fun to be had here, but it's weaker than, say, Series 3 or Series 6 or the Missy arc, things like that.
But there is that, isn't there? Because, I mean, I'm trying to remember, when are the Lost Planets even mentioned? Because I know they mentioned the Adipose planet in episode 1.
There's the Pyroval planet.
Pyroval, yeah. So they mention it in the first 2 episodes back to back.
And there's
and then I think it's just
the Lost Moon.
Midnight.
Yeah. That's in Midnight, isn't it? So even that isn't particularly creative because that's just 3 different ones.
Yeah. So it's kind of like they've set it up. I think probably because they wanted to rely on the Rose a bit more because that popped up in the middle of the season. But you've got, you know,
it's barely a series arc at that point.
Yeah, the Lost Planets show up in, you know, episode 1 and 2. So you hear it in the first 2 episodes back to back, and it's kind of like a signal of this is going to matter later on. Then they let it settle and they show you a bit of Rose. So I don't know. Are there any episodes in the series where you don't see either? Like, you don't get a mention of anything in the first Sontaran episode.
Does Silence in the Library Forest of the Dead have a Rose thing? I don't think
it does. Unicorn and the Wasp doesn't have either.
No.
Doctor's Daughter doesn't have either. First Sontaran episode doesn't, but the second one has Rose. So yeah, like there are some episodes where the arc just doesn't show up at all.
You go for like a 4 episode, yeah. So it's on the weaker side. I think Russell's done it better.
But if you shoehorn it in too much, you might get series 9 with the hybrid, which is probably my least favorite arc because, like, even though I don't think it ended badly, I just don't think it wasn't clear at the end who it was meant to be. I'm getting that it was meant to be 12 and Clara, but I don't think it was like the most well explained thing because they gave like 5 different answers and it was like which one's the right one? We don't know. But
they work to their own means in terms of Rose showing up goes, oh, we're building to something cool and it will involve Rose. The planets, whilst not much in itself, create for a cool moment in Stolen Earth where things just link in a nice way and it's entertaining enough. They serve their own purpose rather than actually doing something really cool.
Yeah, because because the next thing with the hybrid as well is that there was the one in the second of the Zygon 2-parter where like he's talking to Osgood like, which one are you, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, in a way you could say I'm both. And then he just goes, like a hybrid. And it's the most like wink to audience kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, come on, you didn't, like, that wasn't needed. Like, you're shoehorning it in then. So I feel like it's better it being understated. And like I said, because the episodes are so good, you don't need that in the background to keep you hooked because the series is just really good and you're excited to see where it's going regardless, I feel like.
So, this could be a tough question for you because as we've talked about, this series is filled with utter gems. What is your favourite episode of Series 4?
That's tough. That's tough.
It's choosing between your children. I know.
Can you go for a 2-parter? Because if I can go for both parts of the 2-part, I'll just say the last 2 episodes because it was the culmination of an entire era. It was done phenomenally well. We got Davros. We got the Supreme Dalek, which is the coolest Dalek design I think we probably ever had. I really love that. Although I do have a soft spot for the Revolution Daleks. I love those. I don't know. I just feel like people say Journey's End maybe wasn't the strongest story, and I think both of them are really good 2-parters, like pieces of a 2-parter. They flow together really well. You get all these characters coming back, a really good story, and it's just like if someone asked me to define like a definitive perfect Doctor Who finale, I'd pick that. I know people struggled a little bit with the last bit of like, how do you justify putting Rose back in the parallel universe? As a kid, I didn't even think about it. I was just like, yeah, of course she's going back there. But like as an adult watching it back, I'm like, he's done, like, it was tough for Russell to bring her back. He had to if he was bringing all the other characters back. He had to bring Rose back. But like he basically set himself a big problem in trying to raise her back into the parallel universe. And I think the way he did it was the best way he could have done. Of just saying, he's got to be in a separate universe. You've got to look after him, and he committed genocide like me. You can make him better. I kind of like that. I think it's a sweet idea. So
I mean, let's face it. Journey's End does have a bit of a Deus Ex Machina, and Donna flicks some switches, la la la. But then you say that, that's, let's face it, that's what's this is what's come up because obviously the 4 previous podcasts have been series 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each one of RTD's finales is a very that kind of style finale, and this definitely isn't the worst example. Series 3 exists, so it's
that's true. I never thought about that. Bad Wolf Rose, the sucking everyone into the void. Yeah, the Super Scion Space God 10th Doctor, and then Dr. Don. Yeah, you make a good point, actually.
What we've kind of found by doing this series is it very much sums up RTD's style in terms of he was never the best at writing the actual science fiction-y kind of style of the show, really. A lot of his best moments come from the heart, like each of like those series finales. Instead of being carried by the resolution to the story, they're carried by their dramatic beats, which
that's true.
For me, works very well. Like the ending scene in Journey's End where Donna has to lose her memories, like heartbreaking. And like that's why I'm semi nervous for the 60th in that way. Is if they, I'm like if they reverse that in any way fully, it will. That ending has a lot of meaning to me.
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough.
We'll be fine. We'll be fine. There. It's a student film, so that's on them. This is more important.
Oh well, all right, fair enough. Is this all part of the episode?
Oh, I'll probably include it for comedy.
Oh wow. Okay. Well then.
So I think we've discussed the kind of slightly negative or controversial elements of Stolen Earth Journey's End. I've always seen it as my Infinity War. Like that was my everyone, especially Stolen Earth,
100%, yeah.
And this was even I was very familiar with Sarah Jane Adventure at this point, but obviously I was 6. I wasn't familiar with Torchwood at this point, which is definitely a good thing. But but I love it. I love the just how it builds all of the modern Who so far.
Yeah, it's a great crossover. I'd seen little bits of Torchwood, more than I should have done at like, how old would I have been? 8? Yeah, more than I should have seen, probably. I'm guessing I only saw little bits that I can remember, but I knew of like the Torchwood team, so it was a really cool like little crossover event there. But yeah, as a huge Sarah Jane Adventures fan, it was just the way it all came together was just so well done. And I was just so chuffed with the final product, seeing everything come together. And it is, I've made that joke before, it's basically Doctor Who's Infinity War, and it was done before Infinity War was even a thing, you know? It was done before it was cool, as they say. And it was a really good crossover event. And that's why I'd love to see that happen again with with RTD too. Like if we can get some spin-offs cooking and then have them all come together, it would be brilliant. It'd be so good.
That's why it made me excited seeing recently he was like, I'm not going to be making any other series for a while. I'm just going to be, my focus is on the Whoniverse. And that was because if we could build to something like this again, especially as the experience Russel as a writer has gained over the last 10 years and how good his recent stuff has been, I think it would break the fandom. It could just be quality.
100%.
So let's go through some of the other episodes. So we start off the series with Partners in Crime. What are your thoughts?
One of the best openings to any episode. I still weirdly look at Sarah Lancashire in there, and I still feel like she doesn't look like Sarah Lancashire. Maybe just because I'm so used to seeing her as like in Happy Valley. But like if you put those two together, I barely even think they look the same. It's so strange.
It is weird, isn't it?
And I mean facially, I'm not saying it obviously to make it probably was already obvious. I'm not saying in any kind of rude way of like body shape or anything like that. Not to do that. I mean just literally looking at her face, I was like, is that Sarah? It just looked the same, which is so weird. I don't know why I feel like that.
I know what you mean.
But the humor moments you get, especially with Donna, and you just want to mate. Like it's just. There's some great moments in there, and like we said, it's Tennant at his peak. It's Donna coming back and proving to everyone that she could be a full series companion and absolutely smashing it. And just the idea, I mean, there was a whole thing about like, diets. I mean, it's still a big thing nowadays of like, the craze of like, everyone's trying to lose weight, everyone's on their Weight Watchers of the slimming world. So making it into like a big Doctor Who plot, I think is so good. I really like that.
I really wouldn't mind one of those pills. I can't lie. It would be quite nice. But.
Have you got a cat flap?
I think one of the reasons why I love Partners in Crime so much is because for one of the first times, really, there are other episodes that it's arguable, but this is the first time one of the first times Doctor Who has fully tried to go for a comedy in terms of not like comedic elements, like fully a comedy, and it works. Because they go for it. They swing for the fences and they hit the fence. I'm not sure that's what that phrase means, but
I'm gonna say I'm not too sure, but yeah.
It's funny. I think it also shows like that's one of the things modern Doctor Who really translated after obviously one of Classic Who's failings is actually making companions useful and involved properly. Again, another great examples here. Partners in Crime is fantastic, and I would go far as to say it's slightly underrated.
Yeah, it's really good, and I love the idea that the first half of the episode is them just like not bumping into each other. Like it's a really cool little thing of like you're always so close to somebody and yet so far kind of thing. Like I guess it's a relatable situation. Maybe I suppose it's something you can be like, oh god, just bring them together. Come on, you can do it, and eventually they do meet up, and it's just that whole scene of them miming through the windows. There are very few Doctor Who scenes ever that I would say even close to compete. It's just so fantastically done. It's so phenomenally done. And I just love it. It's just a fantastic episode. Let's be real here. It's just fantastic.
It's style, it's substance, it's got that moment, which, I mean, you saying that makes me think, is there, like not necessarily like a scene, but like 2 minutes of Doctor Who that beats that?
That's funnier? No.
Well, even like more like yes, you've maybe got like Doomsday or you've got some of the Capaldi bits, but honestly, that is a class scene. I'm glad you brought that up because
it's in terms of humor. The next scene I would compare, and this might be a hot take, would be Dan when he first meets Carvanista. just like the banter between those two was just so good. Where he's like, you look nothing like Forbes. Get out of here. I'm getting the busies. Like, just because of my own, like, being so close to Liverpool, the way, like, he was done as, like, the Scouse whole attitude was just so good. Like, they had such a great banter, but that, like, doesn't come close to the Partners in Crime window scene. That is easily the funniest thing in Doctor Who.
I know this is a sidetrack, but my moment of Dan, like that, the first time I properly experienced like him like that was the Eve of the Daleks moment.
Oh, that was such a good scene. Like
that was quality. For an episode that for me didn't work. Obviously, we shouldn't get into that too much, but for an episode, I know. For me, the problem is like I just love all things sci-fi, and like I've seen the whole time loop story done so much better, and we could have had so much more. And one of the things I think is pretty unarguable. It feels like so much restraint was put in it due to COVID. It feels so low cast, low budget. This is the easiest thing we can create with COVID. Time loop stories have been done both in and out of science fiction so much better. I'm getting controversial, but it's what I feel. Even
my neck's gonna hurt with the amount of like head shaking I'm doing right now just to prove my point. Like my neck actually feels a little bit stiff from doing this, but no.
We'll
I'll report you to your manager. Anyway, so
that was a very good impression. I rated that. That was very good.
I honestly, I will just have like these odd fleeting moments where the Scouse accent will come out really strong, but when I actually try and do it like as an impersonation, it's never good. So occasionally just happen where I'll come out with it and I'll just suddenly go, that was a bit Scouse.
So next up, worth discussing, Planet of the Ood. People don't like this one as much as a lot of the episodes of Series 4. I think for me, it's and we'll get onto this a lot with the next two-parter, but I really like fun Doctor Who in a way, and this episode is just it's a lot of fun. But then also, people forget this episode with like the Donna like hearing like the Ood sing really breaks your heart, and that's another brilliant Donna moment.
It's a very dark one, very like the slavery tones. Like I didn't realize all them as a kid, and then just hearing, who do you think made your clothes? It's like lines like that. It's like, this is why I've said it a million times. Whenever someone says Doctor Who's too political,
it's always been political.
Yeah, you just haven't been noticing it until now. You just haven't been. It's only when you cast a woman as a doctor you suddenly go, we should analyze this to find every political thing in that. No.
Aye. What are your thoughts overall on Planet of the Ood? Because I rate it a lot.
I think it's a really good story. I think it probably is near the tail end of Series 4 stories for like things I like the most. It's probably nearer the bottom, but it's the same thing as Doctor's Daughter, where I don't think it's bad in any way. There's some great moments. I love like just even little bits of, they turned him into an Ood. Yep, he's an Ood. I can see that. Yeah, like there's just even those little bits and just her, standing up for the Ood. And the Ood just generally are really interesting characters that you don't get to see much of in the Series 2. So I like that we get to explore them a little bit more and who they are and how like their origins and that kind of thing. Like it's a alien race that kind of deserved a bit more screen time, and I think what they got was really cool.
Next up, Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky. Now, for me, I have multiple things going on here. It's a style of story I really like. I think Martha coming back here works very well. It doesn't help that as a kid, I was so obsessed with Sontarens that my dad, the first classic episodes I was shown were like all of the old Sontaran ones, because I was just talking to my dad about it, and I just loved it. Something about 6-year-old me loved Sontarens, and I think even to this day I can watch the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky with so much nostalgia. I think it's, for me, and again, it's probably quite nostalgia based, one of the most underrated episodes of the show. That's controversial.
Were you into like Toy Story and Mr. Potato Head at the time? Because that might not have helped.
That probably. I do love a bit of Toy Story. It's class. It is class.
You just see potatoes everywhere. That's it.
Maybe it was just my stomach talking. I don't know.
It might have been. No, I've heard people say they don't like this as much, and like they don't like Helen Rayner's stories because she obviously did the Sontaran 2 parts and Shaw's did the Daleks 2 parts in Series 3. But I think both of her stories in Doctor Who are really strong. Both of them like present the monsters in unique ways. I think the difference with Sontarens is you haven't seen them in the modern era before this. So it's kind of like a different presentation of the Sontarens to anyone who's seen the classic era. I've like the only classic story I believe that I've seen fully start to finish is the Time Warrior. So like I've seen like the Sontarens at their peak of like domination rather than making everyone die, like by choking to make a breeding planet. So like I didn't have that knowledge of how different they were at the time. Whereas the Daleks, we'd seen them a few times, so we get to see them presented in new lights, and I love that. So she does kind of take monsters and give them like a new presentation, and I think she did it strongly with both of them. But Martha and Donna work so well together. I love that Will gets to play an integral role, and that him being in danger is like a big part of the cliffhanger. Because Bernard Cribbins, man, I love him. I think he was amazing, and I will always be sad that I never got to meet him and tell him that. But
it was over Christmas. I rewatched. I know we've just talked about it, but Partners in Crime. I rewatched it, and the end scene with, because obviously the whole, you've got the whole thing with the telescope, and then Wilf actually sees him. I'm not the most tearjerkery of people. It had me crying because that was just so the mix of that scene working so well, and obviously Bernard's sad passing hit me.
It's gonna destroy me with the 60th, especially now knowing David said that they didn't film everything they'd planned to with Bernard. Like it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be a rough time. And I'm way more of a tearjerker. I've been rewatching How I Met Your Mother, and I've cried at like 4 different episodes in the last 2 days. So, like I'm just not
emotionally healthy.
Not gonna be okay.
Would you call that emotionally healthy? It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to admit, I think the reason why I also love that 2-parter is because I have never been against Doctor Who being campy. Obviously, classic, very campy. Series 1 had quite a lot of campy elements that it went away from. Again, I think this episode, in a lot of its ways, embraces the camp and is all the better for it.
I think it is. It's a very kind of goofy story, and I really like it. I love the Sontaran design as well. I do like that they've gone back to a more classic-y style in Series 13, but I really like the blue armor. I really like the kind of like the action figure kind of vibe that they had. It was quite goofy, and I quite liked it, mainly because I had the action figures of them as a kid.
The reason why I like
it, a great story.
Miss Sontaran action figure is literally over there. I love it. I love it. He's great. It fills me with so much nostalgia. So we've discussed Doctor's Daughter, and we've done Unicorn and the Wasp. Now, in the Series 3 episode, we had a bit of a debate that we can semi-touch on if you'd like. Because Series 3, obviously, the last 6 episodes is, I've got it up here, it's, you go from Human Nature, Family of Blood, then Blink, then the 3-parter. Here, and we were having a debate that like the best run of 6 episodes for me is either at the tail end of Series 3 or the tail end of Series 4. Because in Series 4,
you've got the Libraries, you've got Midnight, Turn Left, Stolen Earth, and Journey's End. So that's yeah. Ooh, I think maybe Series 4 is the better tail end. Both of them are phenomenal. I think Human Nature, Family of Blood is one of the greatest stories in any Doctor episode ever. It's phenomenal. I have no notes for anything bad about that. However, Turn Left in particular is just such a phenomenal episode. I love Turn Left. Midnight, first time I watched it, was not a big fan. Did not vibe with it. Every time I've seen it since, loved it. Think it's brilliant. And it's a peak example of how good Doctor Who can be on a limited budget, in limited space, even the Daleks. So how you can like Midnight and not use the Daleks is beyond me. But anyway, no, I'm not opening that kind of worms. I'm leaving that.
Sorry, you have compared Midnight to Eve of the Daleks. You would say they're of comparable quality.
I would say they're comparable in the sense that both are in a confined space with a confined cast and have a deadly threat.
But if you're going to tell that style of story, my argument is like you've got to admit Midnight is even more confined. Midnight is literally one room. Midnight works as a play. You've got slightly more space to play. You've got the interest of Daleks, and yet Midnight is this study and just characters and the decay of humanity and dark themes and fear and real psychological horror. And you've got Eve of the Daleks. Come on.
Keep talking for a second, because I really just keep talking about how passionate you are about that episode because I have a really funny thing I want to do.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh,
I have a really funny thing I want to do.
Okay,
While I agree with you, all I can think of is this. Just the argument. I'm just thinking of that gif. Just that like a tweet. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Allow me it. Allow me it.
Yeah, you've got it.
Like you were like, it's a piece of me. I'm like, oh mate. No, I agree. Like it's a really good argument that Midnight, it could be easily a stage show and it would be phenomenal. I would argue that doesn't make it a better episode of Doctor Who based on how it would transcend other media though. It's better than Eve the Daleks, let me stress that, but I think both are of comparable quality. I think similar settings and both are
I guess
of Doctor Who.
Because I'm an acting student and I love that kind of thing. That gives me, I think.
Every time I'm going to bring that up now. Every time you say something, I'm like, I should have had that ready earlier.
Well in. I've been done. I've been done.
Over. There we go.
I reckon you just keep up for the rest of the pod. It'll work.
It's just me. That's just me now. That's just me for the episode.
So we can come back to Midnight. Let's do this in order. So, Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead.
Phenomenal. The Vash Narada are one of the creepiest enemies that Doctor Who's ever created. The idea that shadows are the enemy is just insane, and it's phenomenally done. It's probably Stephen Moffat's best story before he became showrunner. Blink is amazing. I'll never say the Blink is a bad episode, but compared to the Library two-parter, I don't know, man. It's the first hint because as well, especially after having seen Clever Dick's documentary on the David Tennant era, like that was the first episode Stephen Moffat wrote when we knew he was going to be the next showrunner. I don't think I knew at the time watching it because I was 8 years old. I wasn't following the news so much, but like it's interesting knowing that everyone went in going, oh, this is his first, like, what's it going to be like? And it gives you hints of his era with River Song. You know, he already knows he's going to be the next showrunner. So he's like, right, I'm going to create a character that's going to be a big part of my era. Let's shove her in. And she works so well. River Song is just an amazing character. And it almost got to me that we don't get more of her and David in the TV series. I know there's a bit of it on Big Finish. Like, I personally have not invested in Big Finish. It's a lot of money that I just don't have. He says having lightsabers next to him. But, like...
That's a worthwhile purchase. You can't criticize having a lightsaber by you.
I mean, look at it. It's beautiful. The only one I own. The only one.
Of course, I believe you 100%. Thousands wouldn't.
Yeah, no, it's the only one I own, definitely. So, so you were saying,
yeah,
it's brilliant. It's a phenomenal two-parter of Doctor Who. I'm just gonna put this back carefully. There we go. It's brilliant.
For me, it's mental how immediately when I think about Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead, I'm thinking about what a world-class story it is. And then you say the River Song stuff, and I'm like, you're like it's so good for me that I forget it's also the complete catalyst for the River Song arc. And Stephen's so clever for pretty much having, obviously, you know, he didn't know exactly what the plan was going to be, but it did, it works so well, and that's going to be the whole podcast, isn't it?
I feel so mean. I have to
fucking
stop.
emoji.
I'm so sorry.
I'm being mugged off.
You are on your own show. I feel so bad. I'm so sorry.
But you know what makes it up is you called this a show, and that makes it
is that not what
show.
It is?
It's a semi-ish podcast.
Hello, sailor.
He's lost his head. He's lost his head. He's gone.
I really wish I bought a pair and just like brought it in with me for the recording. That would have been the real stuff. But I don't like pairs anyway, so I couldn't have done that even for a bit.
The worst thing is I quite like a pair. It's just a funny name for a podcast. I know. I'm breaking hearts here.
You're exposed as a fraud now. I hope you're aware of that.
I think I was exposed as a fraud long before this podcast.
I think you're exposed as a fraud when I brought this picture up. I want to stress, in case people don't know, I'm a very sarcastic person. I don't mean this with any kind of malicious intent.
I love it. And
I was just like I just when you actually see people making those arguments and they're being like annoying, like on Twitter, not like you were, to clarify. I just always love seeing people retweeting with that picture. I'm like, yeah, it sums it up. And just as you were talking, I was like, why am I visualizing that emoji in my head? Just visualizing the face.
See, I went wanky about plays, and you were like, right, that's enough for me. That's enough for me.
You were talking about plays, and then you got played. It's cinema, really. It's
Exactly. I got played on my own show. What am I doing?
cinema.
Let's let's go to Turn Left, because I think again, like you've alluded to, Turn Left is also class.
It does What If better than What If did for Marvel.
I'm genuinely curious. What were your thoughts on What If? Because I have thoughts.
It had some amazing episodes like the Doctor Strange one, but it also has some of the only bits of the MCU I genuinely do not like, a la Party Thor episode.
For me, and that's why I like Turn Left so much. If you're going to tell the alternate universe stories, you've got to stay truthful to the universe. And everything in What If, for example, was played all for jokes. It was all trying to be funny. And it was never like, oh, the zombie episode. Oh, I just burst through Sharon. Ha ha ha. It was like...
the goofiest thing for me was that Hank Pym killed all the Avengers. I'm like, I guess feasibly probably could do it, but it wasn't a very exciting threat when it was revealed. I was like,
who cares?
The only thing in Turn Left that annoys me, but I just ignore, and it's the whole thing I've said before with some things with Doctor Who, you have to suspend disbelief, is that the Titanic only destroyed London. Because as we all know, the whole planet was meant to blow up, and it didn't. So you could argue Max calculated it wrong. It didn't blow up all the planet, just blow up a city. You could do something like that, but that is the thing we have to go. Just if it did blow up the planet, we wouldn't have a story. Let it go. Let it slide. You know,
it's like one of those that like you can make excuses for, but it doesn't. It makes things less interesting. And in an ideal world, we'd have ignored it some way, or like for example with the moon thing. We found a way to go. It was stopped, but we lost Sarah Jane along the way. So that wrote around things more cleverly.
Yeah, that was crazy, them having those references, because that was before we had Stolen Earth. So it was like a proper acknowledgement of those spin-offs before we got the acknowledgement in the following episode.
Yeah, they thought they'd do it a week early just to be selfish at that point.
And it got a mention of like Maria, Luke, and Clyde in, which I'm very grateful for. That was cool.
That was cool. Needed. But yeah, Turn Left is... I mean, the big thing about Turn Left for me is people look at Series 4 and go, wow, Donna, wasn't she class? Wasn't she funny? It's episodes like this and others like Fire of Pompeii, Planet the Ood, the finale, dramatically class.
She's phenomenal.
She's so good.
She's good at the comedy and the drama, and I'm glad that she was able to get the scenes and the writing to prove that she was good at both.
And prove she did.
Yes.
Wow. Overall, then, what I know you've said your thoughts overall. Is there anything you feel like you haven't touched about Series 4 that you want to touch on?
I don't think there is. 'Cause this is the thing. It's a weird case where I can say that I love the series, but like just because I love it, there's just something about it. Sometimes it's hard to put my finger on why I love it so much, but it's just a phenomenal, as you said, not just a phenomenal piece of Doctor Who, but a phenomenal series of television. It's so well written. There's some fantastic characters, some really good like plot devices, monsters, setups, and like you said, there's bits that aren't quite as strong. You know, the series arc is not quite as as enticing as like the cracks, but it doesn't matter because the series is just so well done. So if we get anything like that for the rest of for RTD 2, I feel like the rest has been. Do you know? In case you hadn't realized, it's been 6 months today. Was recording this since Power of the Doctor came out.
Really?
So yeah, so David Tennant has officially been the 14th Doctor for half a year, and we've still got just more than that probably before we get more content. So
that's mental and slightly scary. I can't lie.
100%. Yeah, I can't believe it's been 6 months since I saw Sacha Dhawan dancing to Boney M. I can't believe that.
I think with Series 4, this is because I think, and this might speak about the Doctor Who fandom as a whole. Like, it's hard to talk about it sometimes because you don't just want to say, that's class, that's class, that's class. But there's not tons about Series 4 that I can genuinely criticise.
There's not really anything to pick out, I don't feel like. But I don't pick out a lot of negative things anyway. I'm positive about a lot of stuff. So, I liked Morbius, so...
I never saw it, and apparently I've done well to not give it a go.
I think it's goofy fun, and I had a laugh with it, But I liked Rise of Skywalker as well. How's that?
Oh, Last Jedi was better than Rise of Skywalker. Not that I
Do
was.
you know what? Weirdly, I've just been marathoning all the Star Wars films with my mum, and we've only got Rise of Skywalker tonight to watch. I remember liking Last Jedi more than Force Awakens, and having watched them both now, I'm like, actually, I don't know whether I prefer Force Awakens. It's weird.
For me, it went because I could get like people's big criticism of the Force Awakens was, oh, it's nostalgia play. I really enjoyed it as a nostalgia play. I think the trilogy gets worse as it goes on. I think it's class, has some interesting ideas in The Last Jedi, but aren't particularly well delivered. And Rise of Skywalker was passable, but just didn't work for me.
Better than saying it was outright awful. I'll take it. I'll take it.
See, I am always happy to take the negative stance because life is about opinions. And if I didn't like something, I'm gonna complain because I'm a Karen.
What a great way to end the episode on.
What a great way to end the episode on. Obviously, people who are watching this probably watch and love your stuff anyway. But what would you love to promote out of this episode?
So there will be three big things. So the main YouTube channel that I do is called Red Archer Live. It's a gaming one, mainly just payday stuff. So that's probably what people care less about watching this. But if you want to go, I'm like 20 subs off 30k. I don't know where I'll be when this comes out. I don't know when is this coming out. Do you actually have a set date?
Oh, this will come out within the next few days.
Okay, so probably about 20 subs still off. So if anyone watching this wants to go and help, please do. But the main thing I feel like for everyone is the Who's There. It's Who's There, a Doctor Who podcast. Episode every week, myself and Crispy Pro just chatting about Doctor Who. How we're still managing it with 6 months of a Doctor Who's drought. I mean, to be honest, I'm quite impressed now. I think about it, I'm like, wow.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I don't know how we're doing it. But it's a great podcast. We're having a blast on there. And if you do want to hear more of my own personal thoughts on things, I have another channel called Troy's Thoughts that I haven't uploaded on for like 3 months. Keep saying I'm going to get good with it and keep not doing it. But I'll give you the link to that as well. But there's a link tree. You can find everything through that. Basically.
Yeah, I will put all of the links in the description of this video. And please do all that fun stuff because they are class. I am an avid listener of Who's There, and it's a class podcast.
Thank you, buddy. I really appreciate it.
That's all good. And then do all the classic things on this video because a like and a subscribe would be bloody great. Thank you very much. See, he knows what he's doing. That's professional. That is
exactly.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
We
love
support
that.
other creators, you know.
Woo!
Unless they say that Eve the Daleks is a bad episode.
I sense an Eve of the Daleks podcast coming along now.
Just leaving the emoji up for the end of it. Thank you very much for having me on, though. No, it's been a blast. Thank you for inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
Lovely. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. I can never outro a video. I'm awful at it.